I hope you all can see. Maybe one of you can message in the chat that my screen is visible. Awesome. So we'll just wait for a few more seconds and then we'll start. Okay, I think it's time. So, again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you so much for joining today for this webinar, wherein I'll be taking you through the key insights that has been revealed by the latest wave of Global Consumer Barometer of Toluna. Many of you might be already familiar with Barometer because Toluna does it regularly to make sure that brands are getting regular updates and insights in terms of the evolving consumer behavior as the market dynamics are changing. But for those who don't know, I would like to spend a couple of minutes talking about how Barometer came into existence. So it goes back to 2020 when the pandemic hit the world. It was such an unprecedented phenomena that everything came to a standstill and nobody knew what to do. That time, it was felt that we need to be close to our consumers as frequently as possible so that we know how brands can adapt to the changing needs of the consumers. So that became the trigger point for starting Barometer. This is the 22nd wave that I'll be taking you through. Since 2020, we have done 22 waves. That means that it's not like a 6 months period gap that we have now. So initially, we were doing it much more frequently because everything was so dynamic that we did not know that how quickly market will shift. Though it became the trigger point, but we have seen a lot of other things. If we talk about the past 4 years, there have been sensitive socio-political changes, geopolitical changes. We have witnessed a war, and everything has changed so much in the past 4 years that we never felt that we need to stop Barometer. On the contrary, it has become all the more important in terms of giving regular updates of how the consumers are feeling and how the market is shifting. Not just the geopolitical changes that has impacted the world, we have also seen a huge, I would say, change in terms of climate. I was reading these days that they have mentioned in the news that in the past 174 years, the past June 2023 has been the hottest month the Earth has ever seen. So the climate has also become extremely, I would say, different now, which has completely transformed the relationship consumers have with the brands. Not just this, a lot has been happening. So we feel that there is a continuous need to be in close touch with the consumer. And in this ever changing market, Barometer has become all the more important. And what we do every wave, we adapt it to include the new, more relevant information areas so that we have a deeper understanding of what's going on in the market with respect to the current dynamics. I can't wait to take you through the key insights. But before that, let me explain you the research design. So in the global data, we have 19 markets in total, which has been listed here. It's US, UK, Mexico, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, Italy, France, Brazil, Korea, India, Singapore, Japan, Thailand, China, UAE and Saudi, New Zealand, and Australia. So, whom did we interview in these 19 markets? These were Toluna panelists, and we made sure that these are nationally representative data set. Data has been weighted by age, gender, and region to be census representative in all the markets, except in UAE, wherein we have not basically weighted the regions. It was a predefined questionnaire, and we have done online surveys to capture data. It's very important for you to note the fieldwork dates of the two waves that we will be comparing in this wave. So last year in 2022, Barometer was run in August, And we are comparing that data with the current latest wave. That's what we are calling 2023, which was done in May. So whenever I give any takeouts, we are comparing practically how market has evolved now compared to almost say 10, 11 months ago. So you can say like there is almost a year gap. In terms of sample size, in 2022, we interviewed globally 14,173 people, and now it's 15,848 in 2023. In talking about the Middle Eastern markets, which is UAE and Saudi, we have done on an average 500 interviews in both the waves, each country. So let me give you a quick flow of the report that what all information areas we'll be looking at. So first we'll be gathering general consumer sentiments about their life, like how optimistic they feel about the future, how satisfied they are now with their current life. Then, of course, we listen to a lot of concerns about rising cost of living all the time. It has become a part of every conversation. So we would like to evaluate how the rising cost of living is impacting the spending plan of consumers in the Middle East. We will be doing a deep dive into how a grocery shopping behavior looks like in UAE and Saudi in the next 3 months, which can give a lot of insights to various brands in this category to basically adapt and basically be informed on how the shopping behavior will be transforming. After having gone through the grocery shopping behavior, we would like to understand that are there any dependencies in terms of like the luxury categories that Middle Easterners have that they feel that they cannot live without. Post that, we'll be looking into how the online offline shopping preferences are changing. Are they changing at all or not? Or everything is stable as we saw last year? Then we'll be understanding how consumers are perceiving the initiatives that have been taken by various brands in the innovation space. Last but not the least, we will be talking about what a big superpower environmentally and socially responsible behavior has become in current times. And then we will sum up to identify the key takeaways for brands, the learnings that they can use in the coming times to stay more relevant in the market. So let's start. Let's dive in. So first, talking about consumer sentiments, when we asked the respondents that how satisfied they feel with their life over the past 2 weeks, we saw that compared to the global average, Middle Easterners are consistently more satisfied with their lifestyle. Not just that, they are also significantly more optimist and positive about the future in the Middle East compared to the global average. A couple of important points that I would like to highlight on this slide is that let's talk about Saudi first. So we have seen a significant uplift in the level of satisfaction people have with their life. And the optimism about the future in Saudi stays largely the same at 67%. However, the moment we look at the data in UAE, we see that there has been a slight dip in the life satisfaction numbers that we have registered this wave compared to last wave, which has also been translated into the optimism that they have for the future. Now, what can be the possible explanation for this? So, in this slide, we will see that relatively higher proportion of the people have expressed their concerns about personal financial security, which you can see has been highlighted on the top, has increased from 44% to 48%. Not just that, when we asked the respondents in UAE that do you feel worried about your employment? And we saw a significant jump from 26% to 32% this year. So what we're trying to say here is that job insecurity has significantly gone up in the UAE, and that's the reason we are seeing some dip in the satisfaction levels and the optimism regarding the future as well. Moving on to the impact of rising cost of living, which is actually a part of every conversation these days, like how spending is getting impacted in the backdrop of energy crisis, inflation that's going on since last year. So when we compared the data compared to what we received last year in terms of has these developments of energy crisis and inflation impacted the spending plans of the consumers, we continue to see that majority of UAE and Saudi consumers still feel that they are adjusting their spending plans to combat with the developments that has happened in the economy. Having said that, it's also important to note that these numbers have significantly dropped compared to last year. What does that mean? From where is this drop coming from? That will be interesting to see in the next slide when we break down the total impact by segments. So when we move on to the next slide, and we see that we have bucketed rising cost of living, energy crisis, and even rent and mortgage payments into three segments. So we see here that there are no significant drops. So where is it that that drop is coming from that we saw in the previous slide? I think this is something which is widely accepted whenever any new phenomena happens. Say the moment we start talking about energy crisis, we don't know what's going to happen, to what extent it's going to impact my budget, to what extent it's going to basically lead to cut down in my other expenses. So there is a lot of uncertainty whenever any new dynamic hits the market. Now, after having endured, say, inflation, greater fuel prices, higher rents, consumers have more clarity on how their new spending plan looks like. That possibly explains why a significantly lower proportion of the people said that it's impacting their spending plans because now they have devised a new spending plan that they are adhering to. Now, talking about this slide, what we see here is that inflation continues to be the most important concern among Middle Easterners. And it's basically stable if we compare it from the last year, that the concerns over energy crisis, even rent, they continue to be the same. So people continue to be same level of, I would say, concerned. However, important thing to notice here is that UAE consumers are more worried, actually noticeably more worried compared to Saudi residents when it comes to all these parameters. In 2023, as I said earlier, we try to adapt Barometer to get a sense check of the new developments that have been happening in the market. So we noted that there have been a lot of conversations and concerns going on around instability of the global and financial markets, the increasing price of real estate, and even cost of education. So we had this new information area incorporated to get a sense check to what proportion of the population these factors are impacting. So what we saw is that on an average, 40% of the people in Saudi are worried about all these three parameters. And the concerns are significantly more in UAE for these parameters. So what does it all means? Like people are concerned about inflation, energy crisis, they are worried about cost of education, rent prices. So we asked the respondents to let us know, are they trying to save more money due to all these uncertainties that are going around us? And we got a remarkable big number. 49% of the people in UAE said they are focusing on saving more money. 39% of the people in Saudi, they are also doing so. However, it does explain a lot right now why the satisfaction level in UAE has gone down, because they are more impacted by so many attributes that we have recently discussed, leading to a huge impact or their focus on making savings so that they can meet their ends. Now that it has been established that people are focusing on saving money, how Middle Easterners are planning to save money, which categories will be impacted, it's very interesting to note. So, how they are tackling with this goal of saving money? So, we noted that UAE and Saudi consumers, they are looking for cost-effective alternatives, and for this, they're doing a lot of brand experimentation. They are trying new brands to see if they can get something as satisfactory as they had before and able to save money at the same time. So, what I've done in this slide is I've highlighted the top three categories that are facing experimentation in each of these two markets. So, what we saw in UAE, it's retailer shopping, which is facing the maximum level of experimentation. So, when it comes to, like, say, fashion, clothing, and all, people are very comfortable switching retail stops, but they want to make sure they're saving money. And the topmost category in Saudi turned out to be electronics, mobiles, and TVs. So when we go to these gadget shopping, we can expect a lot of brand comparison and brand switching to be taking place in Saudi. The other two categories which are getting experimented a lot are food and beverages companies. The same thing is happening in the personal care category, hygiene and knowledge brands as well. So, what does it say? It says that consumers are willing to sacrifice the brand they have been using. However, they want to stick to their goal of saving as much as money as they want so that they can deal better with the inflation that's going on in the market. Another level of analysis that we wanted to do was to understand, are they planning to spend less on any of these categories compared to last year? So in UAE, we saw that the top three categories that residents would focus on cutting back the expenses would be leisure clothing, entertainment and subscriptions, and leisure activities. The moment we look at the top three categories in Saudi, they are also considering reducing spend on the leisure activities. However, buying a car also came as number two, which means that automotive sector can expect some slowdown in this year compared to last year. Another important thing to highlight in this slide is that when we look at the vacations and holidays, so those who are planning to spend less on taking vacations and holidays and staycations, that has seen a significant dip. That means travel and tourism sector can expect some expansion and some boost in both UAE and Saudi this year. Coming to the grocery shopping behavior section, so what we did, we asked certain questions, keeping in mind the next 3 months shopping behavior. So consumers were asked to imagine that, think about yourself shopping in the next 3 months, and then let us know what your feedback is about the following information areas. So the first thing we wanted to understand is when they go and shop in the next 3 months, what will be the key parameters that they will take into account while doing their grocery shopping. So as we saw, UAE is much more price sensitive. They have like a huge importance attached to saving money this year. So price came up as the number one factor for UAE consumers. However, interestingly, when we looked at the Saudi data, when it comes to grocery shopping, they may not be putting all the saving focus. So for them, the number one attribute that they will be taken into account while shopping is health. They're going to buy food and beverages which are good for their health. And at the same time, Saudi consumers are also looking for products which are easily available and something that can give them higher quality. So the top three factors in Saudi are health, product availability, it should be easily available, and the quality should be of, I would say, like high importance to them. However, when we look at UAE respondents, it's the pricing, of course. They want to save more. However, they don't want to compromise on their health as well. So they will be looking at a healthy balance between price and uh, food, which is good for their health. And the top three also had offers and promotions. That goes without saying that they will be looking at deals so that they can make a good bargain and save some money. Now, imagining that how a typical UAE grocery shopper will look like in the next 3 months, the top three traits that we outlined were reducing unnecessary purchases. They will be comparing prices online and offline to get the best deals, and they will not hesitate in switching to cheaper supermarkets. When we look at the top three traits in a Saudi grocery shopper, just like UAE, they will also be cutting down on unnecessary purchases. They will be doing comparison online and offline so that they can get the best deals for themselves. However, a different trait that we captured here is that they will try to buy in bulk and less often, which also makes a lot of sense because in Saudi, generally the family size is big and their requirement is big when it comes to groceries. So they tend to buy less often and buy in bulk, which can also help them take advantage of good deals. Now, further diving into what are the other traits that we can expect from grocery shoppers in UAE and Saudi. So, what we noted that UAE residents, they are significantly higher compared to last year in terms of switching to cheaper grocery brands in the upcoming months. So that also explains that even in grocery shopping, they won't hesitate in switching to cheaper brands in order to meet their financial goals. Moving on, talking about the luxuries that Middle Easterns cannot live without. Whenever we talk about this part of the world, it's very important to take into account the lifestyle and the culture that people have. This part of the region, especially, has a very huge importance attached to the social status. So we know that consumer wants to save money, they are doing experimentation, but it's also important to know to what extent they can go to meet their financial goals. Are they willing to compromise a lot, even on their luxuries, which they feel is very integral to them? So this section will be very interesting from the Middle East perspective. So when we ask this question that are there any luxuries that you feel you cannot live without? So 30% of the people globally said that yes, they have dependencies and they do have certain categories that they feel is very ingrained into their lifestyle. However, when we look at these dependencies from the Middle East lens, we see it's significantly higher compared to the global average. 46% of the people in UAE said that they have luxuries that is so ingrained and they find it indispensable that even during these extreme times, they don't want to compromise on that. And this number is even higher in Saudi. Like more than half of the consumers that we interviewed, they have such dependency. Now it will be very interesting to see that which are these categories that they cannot live without. So the top category that came up was fashion, clothing, and footwear. After that, we saw it's technology. Yeah. So the thing is, what we see here is that people like here to have technologically advanced lifestyle. The gadgets, whenever any new gadgets come into the market, they like to have that in their collection because social status, being advanced, is something which is a very critical aspect of the lifestyle that we have in UAE. Then the third important category that came up was perfumes and fragrances, which is very much understandable, especially when I talk about Saudi market, even in UAE, of course, I should say that people love to have fragrances. It's an important part of their culture. They use different fragrances as per different times of the day. They mix perfumes to make their own scent. So it's culturally very important and they cannot live without it. Other indulgences that we should take into account when we say about the luxuries that Middle Easterners cannot live without is that eating out. Eating out is something which is very common in both UAE and Saudi. There are a lot of social gatherings when we talk about Saudi and looking at UAE, there's a huge expat population, a lot of small families, single people living here, and socializing is a huge element of their lifestyle. So eating out also is something which they feel that they can cut back to some extent, but they cannot do away with it altogether. A very interesting difference that we found out in the data for UAE and Saudi is that UAE residents, they spend a lot on holidays and weekend getaways, staycations, because it's something which is a part of lifestyle there. And then in Saudi, it's homeware that people like to invest a lot. Again, big families, they do a lot of social gatherings. So they want to make sure that the place that they live in is up to the mark and it's socially representable. So they do invest in furniture, I would say, cutleries, the home decor, and they feel that this is so important to them that they will continue to spend on this. Now, adding this with the saving aspect that we have discussed previously, what are we trying to say here? What is the bigger message? That yes, they can be switching brands, they will be focusing on saving, they would want to cut back some unnecessary expenses. However, these categories may not see a big hit because that's something they feel is a part of their lifestyle. They may be spending less, but they will continue to spend into these categories. Now we are talking about how the online versus offline landscape looks like. When we look at different categories, do we have very strong preferences in terms of which channel they want to buy it from? Say, when we talk about personal care toiletries and hygiene products, whether people are more interested buying it online or physical stores, or they are fluid. It's interesting to see that for all the categories that have been listed here, which is like grocery, household cleaning, clothing, technology, cosmetics, so on and so forth, the highest proportion of the people fall into the bucket wherein they are comfortable buying it both online and offline. So, what does it mean? It means that they don't have strict channel preferences. They are comfortable buying it both online and offline, depending upon where they're getting a better deal, say, for example, or which works more conveniently to them in terms of, say, home delivery. So, what we are trying to say here is that brands need to have strong presence in both online and offline mediums, because consumers here, like a large majority of the consumers here, are very fluid in terms of buying behavior. They're not very sticky. However, when we compare online purely versus physical stores, we see that there is a greater inclination to buy in physical store compared to online. These are those people who are saying we are more inclined towards physical store. Yeah. So what are we trying to say here? That in the Middle East, there is a tendency to go to the malls. People like to go to the malls, inspect what they are buying, check it, compare, and then they buy it. So in the Middle East, there is a higher inclination towards physical store when we look at those people who are basically indicating that I'm more interested online or more interested in physical stores. However, a large majority is very fluid between both the channels. This is a very interesting section in which we talk about what consumers feel about various innovative measures that have been taken by various brands. It goes without saying that brands every year invest a lot in creating new products or updating the existing products and services that they have so that they stay relevant in the market, so that they meet the expectations of the consumers at all the times, so that they keep on creating that brand differentiation. We know that. But now, when we look at from consumers' perspective, do they also feel the same? Do they feel that whatever measures are being taken in terms of innovation, are they enough for them? So what we noted is that almost on an average, 25% of the people across these five categories that I've listed, which is like luxury products, automotive, food and beverages, cosmetic skincare, and travel and tourism, 25% of the people combined in UAE and Saudi, they feel brands are not doing enough. What does it mean? It means that there are some unmet needs. There are some pain points that consumers have. 25% is not a small number. We're talking about one fourth of your target audience. So, this is a very important insight that we have, that whatever brands are doing is great. I mean, we're not saying brands are not doing innovation, they are doing innovation. But there are some unmet needs that brands need to explore by, say, doing more surveys by categories, by each product and service that they have among these consumers, and understand how they can basically improve to meet their needs better. One important point to highlight on this slide is that we saw that in Saudi, there is a big room of opportunity in the food and beverages category, because in UAE, it's significantly lower compared to Saudi. Coming to the last section about the power of environmentally and socially responsible behavior that consumers expect from various brands. So, now in this section, we're not saying that brands need to be socially responsible or brands need to be more environmentally responsible. No, actually, it has become a norm. And brands already have implemented a lot of sustainable measures in their policies, in their products, packaging, so on and so forth. What we are trying to highlight in this section is what a big power this sustainable behavior has become. So, when we ask the respondents, how important is it for you that brands are socially and environmentally responsible? Is it like more important? Is it equally important as compared to last year? Or it's less important now because, the times are challenging, so you can deprioritize maybe sustainability. And the numbers are remarkably huge. What we saw here is that in the Middle East, just like globally, we have seen that one fourth of the respondents have said that it's more important to them now. Like, they're not deprioritizing sustainability. It has become actually a part of their general expectation from brands that they need to be sustainable. When we combine the numbers of those who said it's more important or it's equally important to me, 75% of the people globally, like taking into account all the 19 markets that we have interviewed, they say it's just very, very important to me. And when we compare the global data, with UAE, we see it's significantly higher in UAE compared to the global data, which also makes a lot of sense when we take into account UAE government's strategic initiative of reaching the carbon neutrality target that they have for 2050. They want to bring down the carbon emissions to zero by 2050. Now, are these only expectations, or consumers are willing to take some strict actions to make sure that their demands are being met? So, when we ask this question to the respondents, 29% of the people in UAE said that they would never invest in a product if they knew that it's detrimental to the environment and the society. On an average, one fourth of the people in the Middle East, they have already stopped using a brand sometime in the past when they came across some negative impact that it had on environment and social activities. So these are not, I would say, mere claims. They have actually stopped using a brand. So now we know that how important sustainability is for consumers, and they really want brands to be serious about it. Now, taking it one level further, when we ask the respondents how do they think their future behavior looks like when it comes to sustainable measures being taken by brands, on an average, 30% of the people in the Middle East, they said that they will stop using a brand altogether if they get to know that it's negatively impacting the environment and the society. So, in a nutshell, what Middle Easterns want brands to do is to be sincere and authentic in whatever they say and they do. That also means being transparent. Like if you say that you're going to have sustainable packaging, they want to see it. If they are using sustainable practices in the manufacturing process, they want to know about it. Middle Easterners also want brands to have policies which benefit environment and the society. They want them to commit to reducing the use of plastic packaging, and they want to move to the paper packaging, which is more sustainable. They want brands to have products and services which actually support the environment and social change. After having gone through so many insights, what are the main, I would say, takeaways for the brands? Like, what is it that they need to do so that they stay ahead of the curve? First and foremost, meeting consumer expectations. We saw in the innovation section that there are some unmet needs, there are some pain points. So, of course, brands need to deep dive into those pain points, take care of those issues, mitigate them, and then offer products which are more relevant to them. We also asked a very interesting question to the respondents that we have spoken about sustainability, we have spoken about saving. Now take everything into perspective and taking into account the holistic picture of what their priorities are. Please let us know which of these parameters are most important to you. Please rank them. And now, taking into account even sustainable measures as well, what we see that in both the markets, promotional offers are the number one expectations from brands. We know inflation is there, energy crisis is there, the cost of living has gone up much more compared to past couple of years in the region. So it's natural for them to expect offers and promotions from the brand. However, the moment we move to the top three in UAE, we see that consumers expect communications via social media. So, a good learning for brands is that social media can turn out to be a very useful tool in UAE when it comes to communicating. Yeah. However, when we moved to Saudi, it was basically highlighted that they are more interested in brands, partners with influencers and celebrities. Apparently, it has a more impact on their purchase decisions. So, influencer marketing can be something brands can consider in Saudi to entice their consumers. And as we saw previously, that sustainability is something which is very critical for them. So it's not a surprise when we see that it's coming in the top three priorities of both UAE and Saudi residents. So, what are the next steps that brands need to implement after taking into account all the insights that we have got through Barometer's latest wave? First and foremost, brands need to highlight the savings aspect. We know consumers want to save. It's very clear they want to meet their financial goals. So smart pricing has to be done. Now, just to give you some thoughts around that. Say, for instance, when they're doing packaging and they're talking about a promotion, instead of saying that you will be getting, say, X amount of more quantity, it can be more enticing to talk about you will be saying X amount of money. Brands can also introduce some kind of reward programs so that whenever consumers are buying from brands, every time they spend money, they also have a signal that I'm saving X amount of money. So having loyalty programs can be a good engaging factors because buying from brands will also make them think that I'm accumulating some points which I can use later, and it's basically some amount of saving that's also coming with the expense incurred with a particular brand. Brands can also think about having smaller packaging. Why not? Because anytime you buy a bigger pack, a big amount of money goes out of your pocket. However, having smaller packaging can also induce brand trial because we know consumers are experimenting. So it can also be useful in terms of encouraging brand trial. And small packaging, they will not be paying a lot of money, and they will think, okay, I get to try a new product. So smart pricing, having reward programs is something very important in this kind of a saving mindset of the consumer. Second important, I would say, learning from all these data points is that there is a huge need to induce more stickiness into the market, having more consumer loyalty. Consumers are experimenting with different brands. So, what we need to do is continuous innovation to create that differentiation that if you move to another brand, you may not be able to get that quality or say that kind of differentiation, that exclusivity that my brand is offering. So, brand differentiation is very critical, especially in the times when consumers are being very fluid in terms of their spending behavior. In the end, we know that brands already have policies and various initiatives that are sustainable. It's time to communicate more on the benefits that these policies and initiatives are driving. Because when they see the actual impact on the society and environment, it will definitely encourage more brand commitment among the consumers. Now it's time for Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding all the data points that we have covered. You can please type in your questions in the chat box. Are there any questions? Anything that you want me to elaborate on? While you're thinking about the questions, let me tell you that we will be sending a recording of this session. So those of your colleagues who couldn't make it to the session, they have a chance to go through the insights. And we will also be sharing this deck with you so that you can utilize the insights in the further decision making or the strategies that you are working on in the coming few months. We still have a couple of more minutes, so please feel free if you have any questions. Yeah, so I see one question here in terms of the demographic profile of the sample. As I said in the beginning, that we have made sure that the data is nationally representative in each of the country. So it's that, and you're saying expats or locals. As I said, it's nationally representative. So say if in Saudi the split looks like 70-30, so that's what we have followed even in the survey. There's a question about when is the next wave planned. So it's in September. So we can say that the insights will be ready somewhere about the end of Q3 in October. You can get some insights about the next barometer. If you would like to have more insights about EU samples, I would request you to write to me separately and we can connect in terms of, because barometers has a lot of information areas. We cover really deep and various aspects when it comes to consumer spending and all. So we can outline the information areas you're interested in and the markets which are critical to you in EU, and we'll be happy to share those data cuts as well. Thanks, Maria, for sharing my email. Yes, anybody who has any questions, even after the webinar, please feel free to write to me. If there is any more explanation you need, if you need some more data cuts, like, for example, Bisan has asked about EU insights, so we'll be happy to share that with you. The idea of the barometer is to help the clients and brands and even other stakeholders to derive the insights of how the landscape is looking like and where the market is heading, any shifts. So we are happy to help you in every possible way. All right, so it seems that we don't have any further questions. So probably we can end this session, Maria. It's a very good point, Maria, that you've mentioned that we do make a report which is focused on the big five. So, listen, if those five markets which are included in the big five reports, it's relevant to you, so we can also share that with you. And if you have interest in any other market, as I said earlier, that can also be shared. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.